Right now, there's an object racing toward our sun that's doing something impossible. Its tail is pointing the wrong way. The chemistry makes no sense, and NASA just detected something that should only exist in human factories. Every telescope on Earth is watching this thing, and the more they see, the less it makes sense. Scientists have 3 months to figure out what this is before it disappears forever, and some of them are starting to panic. Here's what's got everyone freaked out. This object has pure nickel metal floating around it, but absolutely zero iron. That's like finding salt without chlorine or water without hydrogen. It doesn't happen in nature ever. Iron and nickel are cosmic best friends. They're forged together in dying stars and blasted out by supernovas. They've been inseparable for 13 billion years. The only time we see pure nickel is when humans use industrial smelters to separate it. But this object is older than Earth itself. So how did how did natural processes create industrially pure nickel in deep space? NASA's official answer, we don't know. Their unofficial answer, much more interesting. But the nickel thing isn't even the weirdest part. This object has a tail that points toward the sun. Let me explain why that's impossible. Solar wind is like a cosmic hurricane. It blows at 400 kilometers per second. When it hits a comet, it pushes the gas and dust away from the sun. Always. Imagine sticking your head out of a car window. The wind pushes your hair backward, right? Now imagine your hair flowing forward instead. That's what we're seeing here. The tail is literally defying the most powerful force in our solar system, the sun itself. 3 separate telescopes confirmed this. It's not measurement error. It's not an optical illusion. This thing is doing something that breaks physics as we understand it. Then came the chemical analysis, and this is where things get really disturbing. Normal comets are mostly water ice, maybe 90% water, 10% other stuff. Simple cosmic snowballs that have been floating around for billions of years. But this object? It's 89% carbon dioxide ice, only 11% water. That's completely backwards from everything we know about comet formation. It's like finding a desert made of ice or an ocean made of sand. The CO2 cloud around this thing is now 300,000 kilometers across. That's almost half the size of our sun. From a tiny core that's maybe 5 kilometers wide. It's like a marble creating smoke visible from the moon. And here's the scary part. Carbon dioxide doesn't behave like this naturally. Something is making it sublimate at temperatures where it should be rock solid. Remember how I said every telescope is watching this thing? That's because it started getting bright way too early. Comets are supposed to stay dark and boring until they get close to the sun. Basic space physics. Cold objects don't glow. But this thing was blazing like a searchlight when it was still beyond Jupiter's orbit, colder than Antarctica and getting brighter every day. The TESS satellite watched it for 3 weeks. The brightness increased exponentially. Not gradually, exponentially. That's not how frozen objects behave, unless something was switching on, powering up, coming online. And if you think that sounds like artificial activation, well, you're not the only one. This object is moving at 60 kilometers per second. That's fast enough to circle the Earth in 11 minutes. It covered the distance from Saturn to Mars in just 4 months. NASA's fastest probes take years to make that journey. But here's what's really disturbing. Objects don't just randomly achieve those speeds. Something had to accelerate this thing to interstellar velocities. Either it got flung out by a massive gravitational slingshot around a black hole, or something else gave it a push. The trajectory analysis shows it's been traveling for possibly millions of years, just cruising through the void at impossible speeds, like it was sent here on purpose. When NASA realized what they were looking at, they did something unprecedented. They pointed every major space telescope at this single object, Hubble, James Webb, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, SPHEREx. Even military satellites that aren't supposed to exist. They're not telling us everything they're seeing. The official reports are sanitized, carefully worded, deliberately vague, but the leaked data tells a different story. Internal NASA communications mention unidentified spectral signatures. Anomalous electromagnetic emissions. Structural analysis inconclusive. That's not the language they use for rocks and ice. Let's talk about the theory nobody wants to say out loud. What if this isn't natural? What if we're looking at technology from a civilization millions of years older than us? Think about it. The separated nickel, the backwards physics, the controlled brightness changes, the impossible chemistry. Every single feature of this object suggests artificial construction. A probe designed to study star systems from the outside, built to survive millions of years in deep space, using materials and propulsion we can't even imagine. The CO₂ emissions could be attitude-controlled thrusters. The brightness changes could be sensor arrays coming online. The nickel separation could be from exotic manufacturing processes. And that backwards tail, that could be an exhaust plume. Here's what makes this really disturbing. This object comes from the old galaxy. Computer simulations traced its path backward through space. It originated from a region that's twice as old as our solar system. We're talking about a star system that formed when the galaxy was young, when the first heavy elements were just starting to appear. If a civilization evolved there, they would have had billions of years head start on us. Billions of years to develop technology we can't comprehend. They could have sent probes throughout the galaxy, scouts designed to study every star system, every planet, every sign of developing life. And now, one of those scouts has found us. But here's where it gets really interesting. NASA is being unusually secretive about this discovery. Normal space discoveries get immediate press conferences, detailed data releases, open scientific discussion. But not this time. The initial announcement was buried in a routine asteroid catalog update. No fanfare, no press conference, no detailed analysis. The raw telescope data is classified. Independent researchers can't access it. The international astronomy community is being kept in the dark. Even the Wikipedia page is suspiciously sparse, like someone is actively suppressing information. When has NASA ever been secretive about a comet? Never, because comets aren't threatening. But probes from ancient alien civilizations? That would be different. Here's the urgent part. We have exactly 73 days to figure this out. On October 29th, this object will swing around our sun and start heading back into deep space. After that, it'll be gone forever. But before it leaves, something interesting is going to happen. On October 15th, it's going to pass within 28 million kilometers of Mars. 2 European satellites will photograph it using high-resolution cameras. For the first time, we'll see what's actually at the center of that CO₂ cloud. Will it look like a natural rock, or will we see geometric shapes, artificial structures, technology? NASA knows what those images are going to show. They've already run the calculations, and they're preparing for something big. The Mars flyby isn't just a photo opportunity, it's a test. If this really is an artificial probe, it might react to the presence of our satellites, change course slightly, adjust its trajectory, send a signal. The European Space Agency isn't saying much, but their Mars orbiters have been repositioned. New software has been uploaded. Communication arrays have been realigned. Like they're expecting something to happen, the images from that flyby will either confirm this is just a weird natural object or change human history forever. And we'll know in less than 3 weeks. Governments around the world are quietly preparing for something. Deep space monitoring stations have been put on high alert. CT arrays are focused on this object's trajectory. Military satellites are tracking its every move. The UN Office for Outer Space Affairs held an emergency closed-door meeting last week. No minutes were released. No public statements, but leaked documents mention first contact protocols and information containment strategies. They know something we don't, and they're getting ready. But here's the most telling evidence that this isn't natural. NASA was planning to crash the Juno spacecraft into Jupiter in September. End of mission. Dispose of the probe. But suddenly, they changed their minds. Juno's mission has been extended. New flight plans have been filed. The spacecraft is being repositioned for a potential intercept. In March 2026, when this object swings back past Jupiter, Juno will be waiting. That's not what you do for a random space rock. That's what you do when you want to study the most important discovery in human history. Meanwhile, NASA's public statements are carefully designed to sound boring. Routine interstellar comet, standard chemical analysis, no unusual features detected. But the classified briefings tell a different story. Congressional committees are being updated weekly. Military officials are involved in the analysis. The International Space Station has been equipped with new observation equipment. Telescope time has been secretly reserved for priority projects. They're treating this like a national security issue, not a scientific curiosity. This isn't the first time we've seen these objects. In 2017, Oumuamua showed up, cigar-shaped, no visible emissions, but it accelerated as it left our solar system. NASA claimed it was outgassing, but no gases were detected. The acceleration was subtle but real, like it was under power. Then came Borisov in 2019. This one looked normal, acted like a regular comet, almost too normal, like it was designed to look harmless, a decoy to make us think interstellar visitors are natural. But now we have this third object, and it's not even trying to hide what it is. And then Harvard dropped a bombshell that changed everything. Dr. Avi Loeb, the guy who chairs Harvard's astronomy department. The scientist who's published over 800 papers and advised multiple government agencies on space threats. This is not some fringe researcher making wild claims. In July 2025, Loeb co-authored a paper with Adam Hibbard and Adam Kroll from the Initiative for Interstellar Studies in London. The title is The Interstellar Object 3I Atlas Alien Technology. But here's the really disturbing part. The paper explores whether 3I Atlas could provide evidence for something called the dark forest hypothesis. Never heard of it? You should have. The dark forest theory suggests that advanced alien civilizations stay silent because they're afraid of each other. Any civilization that reveals itself gets destroyed by more advanced neighbors. But what if some civilizations are actively hunting, sending probes to locate developing species before they become threats? Loeb's paper suggests using NASA's Juno spacecraft to intercept 3I Atlas when it passes Jupiter in March 2026. And here's the kicker. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is supporting this proposal. When Congress gets involved, you know this isn't just academic speculation. But to understand why Loeb's 3I Atlas paper is so significant, you need to know what happened with Oumuamua. The deviations in Oumuamua's trajectory weren't large. Only about 0.1%, but they were significant. Objects don't just change course in space, not without a reason. NASA claimed it was outgassing, invisible gases pushing the object off course. But here's the problem. No gases were ever detected. None. Zero. The acceleration was real, but the explanation made no sense. Loeb proposed that Oumuamua might be a light sail, an extremely thin artificial object propelled by solar radiation pressure, like alien technology drifting through space. In October 2018, Loeb and his postdoc Shmuel Bialy published this theory in a peer-reviewed journal. The scientific community went ballistic, not because the theory was wrong, but because it challenged their fundamental assumptions about what's normal in space. According to Loeb, Oumuamua might not have been sent deliberately. It could be cast-off technology of unknown purpose, alien garbage floating between the stars. But what if it wasn't garbage? What if it was reconnaissance? Now look at the pattern. Oumuamua in 2017, cigar-shaped, tumbling, no visible emissions, but it accelerated as it left our solar system. A quick scout, fast in, fast out, gathering basic data about our sun's activity and planetary positions. Borisov in 2019 looked completely normal, a regular comet with predictable behavior. But think about that. If you're conducting surveillance, wouldn't you want some of your probes to look harmless, to establish a baseline of normal interstellar visitors? Borisov was too perfect, too ordinary for something supposedly from another star system. And now 3I Atlas, blazing with impossible chemistry, defying basic physics, acting like it wants to be noticed. 3 different types of visitors, 3 different operational modes: scout, decoy, revealer. Loeb's new paper explores whether 3I Atlas supports the dark forest hypothesis, and that's terrifying for reasons most people don't understand. The dark forest theory comes from Chinese science fiction writer Liu Cixin, but it's based on solid game theory. Here's the logic. The universe is old, really old. If intelligence is common, advanced civilizations should be everywhere, but we see nothing, hear nothing, detect no signs of galactic-scale engineering. Why? One possibility: advanced civilizations eliminate competition before it becomes dangerous. Think about human history. What happens when a technologically advanced civilization meets a primitive one? The primitives get conquered, enslaved, or wiped out entirely. Now scale that up to galactic civilizations millions of years old. Any species that develops radio technology gets marked for observation. Any species that achieves spaceflight gets marked for elimination before they can become a threat. If the dark forest hypothesis is real, then objects like 3I Atlas aren't just visitors. They're part of a galaxy-wide surveillance network. Ancient probes launched millions of years ago by civilizations that may no longer exist, programmed to monitor every star system, every developing species, waiting for targets to reveal themselves. We've been broadcasting radio signals for over a century. Our television and radar emissions have been leaking into space since the 1940s. Any sufficiently advanced civilization within 80 light years knows we exist, and now their probes are arriving to assess the threat level. Loeb's team used advanced trajectory analysis software called OITS, Optimum Interplanetary Trajectory Software, to investigate whether 3I Atlas could be maneuvering under its own power. The results? Classified. But here's what we know. Objects on purely ballistic trajectories don't change brightness at specific orbital distances. They don't develop backwards tails. They don't emit industrially pure nickel, unless they're under intelligent control. When Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna endorsed Loeb's proposal to intercept 3I Atlas with the Juno probe, it sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Luna sits on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. She has access to classified briefings about space threats and national security implications. Her public support of the intercept mission means Congress knows something we don't. Think about the timeline. Loeb publishes his paper in July. Within weeks, a sitting congresswoman is publicly supporting an expensive mission modification to study this object. That's not how government usually works, unless there's classified intelligence supporting Loeb's hypothesis. As Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. But what if the proof already exists in classified? What if government scientists have already confirmed that 3I Atlas is artificial? Of course, mainstream scientists are furious about Loeb's theories. Experts have called his 3I Atlas paper nonsense, the same way they attacked his Oumuamua research. But here's the thing about scientific consensus. It's often wrong. Continental drift was nonsense until it wasn't. Bacterial causes of ulcers were nonsense until they weren't. Exoplanets were nonsense until we found thousands of them. The scientific establishment has a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Admitting that aliens might be surveilling us would overturn decades of research and careers. Today, the general consensus is that Oumuamua was an asteroid leaking gas into space, similar to a comet. But that explanation still doesn't account for the acceleration without visible emissions. They're choosing comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths, and the pattern is repeating with 3I Atlas. Loeb has a reliable method for gauging whether his 3I Atlas research went viral. When his carpenter and mechanics start asking him about it, he knows the story has broken through. But notice how this story isn't getting mainstream media coverage. When Oumuamua was discovered, it was front-page news for weeks. Every major outlet covered it. But 3I Atlas, silence. The object with backwards physics and impossible chemistry gets buried in technical journals. The Harvard professor's alien technology paper gets dismissed as controversial. That's not accidental. Someone is managing the narrative. Think about it. If 3I Atlas really is just a weird comet, why suppress the story? Weird space objects usually generate massive public interest. But if it's something else, if it represents a genuine threat to human security, then information control becomes critical. Keep the public calm while experts figure out how to respond. And what would a proper response look like? First, confirm the object's artificial nature using close-range observation. That's what the Mars flyby and potential Juno intercept are really about. Second, analyze its capabilities. Is it purely observational? Does it carry weapons? Can it communicate with other probes? Third, determine its origin. Which star system launched it? How long has it been traveling? Are there others coming? Fourth, assess the threat level. Is this reconnaissance preceding invasion, or just passive monitoring of a developing civilization? Loeb's paper investigates whether 3I Atlas has high and/or low thrust maneuverability. In other words, can it change course at will? If yes, then we're not looking at ancient, drifting technology. We're looking at an active probe under real-time control, and that changes everything. Here's what's really disturbing. These visits are getting more frequent. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, now this in 2025. The intervals are getting shorter. The objects are getting more obvious, more active, like someone is conducting increasingly detailed surveys of our solar system. Phase 1. Quick flyby to confirm planetary positions. Phase 2. Extended observation to study our sun's activity. Phase 3. Close approach to analyze our technological development. We might be looking at a systematic first contact protocol. If this really is artificial, what does that mean for humanity? We're looking at technology that's millions of years more advanced than ours. Materials science we can't duplicate. Propulsion systems we can't understand. The ability to send probes across interstellar distances and keep them operational for geological ages. A civilization that achieved spaceflight when our solar system was still forming. They could have been watching our planet since before life began, monitoring our evolution, waiting for us to develop technology. And now we have telescopes powerful enough to spot their scouts. Right now, as you're watching this video, this object is getting closer to our sun. The CO2 emissions are increasing, the tail is getting longer, the brightness is ramping up. Like it's preparing for something. Every day, more telescopes join the observation campaign. More data gets classified, more questions arise. The amateur astronomy community is being quietly discouraged from observing this object. Telescope rental companies are mysteriously booked up. Someone doesn't want too many people looking at this thing. In just a few weeks, we'll know the truth. The Mars flyby images will show us what's really at the center of that gas cloud. Natural rock formation or artificial construction. The spectral analysis will reveal whether those emissions are random sublimation or controlled releases. The trajectory data will confirm whether this thing is following ballistic physics or making course corrections. By November 1st, we'll either go back to normal life or everything changes. Here's my advice. Pay attention to the news in late October. If this really is what some people think it is, the government response will be carefully managed. Information will be released gradually to avoid panic, but watch for the signs. Increased military activity around deep space installations, sudden changes in NASA's public communications, emergency meetings of international space agencies, and watch the mainstream media. If they start downplaying this discovery or changing the subject entirely, that's when you know it's real. This object represents something bigger than just first contact. It's proof that advanced civilizations can survive for millions of years, that they can build technology that lasts geological ages, that they're actively exploring the galaxy. If one probe found us, others will follow. This might be just the beginning. The next few months could be the most important in human history. The transition from a single planet species to part of a galactic community. Or the moment we realize we're not alone and never have been. But here's what I think will actually happen. Even if the Mars images show clear artificial structures, the government won't tell us immediately. They'll classify the data, form secret committees, prepare disclosure strategies. The truth will leak out slowly over months or years, through whistleblowers and FOIA requests and congressional hearings. By the time they officially admit what this thing really is, it'll be old news. The shock value will be gone. That's how you manage paradigm-shifting discoveries without causing social collapse. But some of us won't wait for official disclosure. Independent researchers are tracking this object using amateur telescopes, analyzing the available data, connecting the dots that NASA won't connect publicly. The truth is out there, literally racing toward our sun at 60 kilometers per second, and it's carrying answers to questions humanity has been asking since we first looked up at the stars. We just need the courage to accept what those answers might be. So here's where we stand. 73 days until closest approach, 18 days until the Mars flyby, and maybe just weeks until everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe changes forever. This object is either the weirdest natural phenomenon ever discovered, or proof that we've been under observation by an ancient galactic civilization. Either way, it's the most important story happening right now, and almost nobody is talking about it. But you are, because you're watching this video, because you're paying attention, because you want to know the truth. Keep watching the sky, keep asking questions, and get ready for answers you might not expect, because something ancient is coming, and it's almost here. What do you think this object really is? Natural phenomenon or artificial probe? Let me know in the comments. And if you want updates as this story develops, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this is just the beginning. The truth is out there, and it's heading straight for us.